What if Matthew Mitchell never pulled that trigger? What if the man they buried as a killer was actually the fourth victim? What if someone walked into that house on Sunday night, put a gun in the hands of a dead man, and walked back out into a city that would never think to look for them? What if the perfect crime doesn't look like a crime at all? It looks like a tragedy. It looks like a headline. It looks like a sad story you scroll past on a Tuesday morning and never think about again. What if that is exactly what someone counted on? Because here is what nobody is telling you. Maya Mitchell's last moments were not fear. Max Mitchell's last moments were not chaos. Thy Mitchell's last post was not a goodbye. It was a dress shopping video. A 10 out of 10. A cookie shared between a mother and her daughter on a perfectly ordinary Saturday afternoon. People who are about to lose everything do not post that. And people who are about to destroy everything do not leave it looking this clean. Something happened in that house on Sunday night, and the version of events that Houston police handed the world in less than 24 hours, the neat, closed, no further questions version, may be the most dangerous thing about this entire case. This is Mistora Crimes, and this is the story they already told you they figured out. They didn't. Now let me show you why. But before I do, if you watched part 1 and came back because something about this case wouldn't let you sleep, you already know why this channel exists. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Mistora Crimes. Ring that bell, because thy Mitchell was a real woman. Maya was a real little girl. Max was a real 4-year-old boy. And if there's even a 1% chance that the wrong story is being told about what happened to them, then they deserve every single person watching this to pay attention. This is how we fight for them. Now let's get into it. May 3rd, 2 days before the bodies are found. Thy Mitchell is driving her daughter Maya to a dress shop. Her sister just got engaged. There's a wedding in Boston being planned. Thy is pregnant. The restaurant just had 50 people walk through the door for a board event she personally hosted. She is filming. She is laughing. Maya is spinning in front of mirrors, trying on formal dresses, and rating everything with the complete authority that only an 8-year-old possesses. They stop for lunch. Maya feeds her mother a cookie. Thy posts the whole thing to Instagram and captions it. The sweetest mom-daughter time. That post is still live right now. Go find it. Read the comment section from top to bottom and watch the exact moment the world finds out what happened. Watch the hearts turn into crying emojis. Watch the laughing comments get buried under grief. Watch hundreds of strangers gather inside a dress shopping video, try and make sense of something that will never fully make sense. That comment section is a timeline, and what it tells you, what it screams at you if you read it carefully, is that nobody saw this coming. Not friends, not colleagues, not people who had just been inside her restaurant 2 days before. Nobody. And I need you to understand why that matters. Because in cases where a husband reaches a breaking point, where the pressure builds and the walls close in and something inside a man finally fractures, there are almost always signs. Not always public signs, not always police report signs, but signs. A change in behavior, a withdrawal, a comment that lands wrong, a look that a friend remembers later and thinks, now that I think about it, nobody in Mitchell's world is saying that. Nobody is coming forward with a moment that reframes Matthew. Nobody is saying they saw something and looked away. The silence around any warning signs is not the silence of people protecting a reputation. It is the silence of people who are genuinely, completely blindsided. And that silence is its own kind of evidence. Now, let me tell you something about Matthew Mitchell that the early reports glossed over. Something that changes the psychological picture significantly. This man was not just a restaurateur. He was the president and CEO of the Texas Center for Drug Development, a clinical pharmaceutical research company. He ran a company. He managed people, budgets, liability, regulation, the kind of high-stakes decision-making that breaks most people before they ever get close to the top. Then he walked away, voluntarily, and went to culinary school, got a degree in culinary arts from the Art Institute of Houston, worked as a line cook, worked front of house at local restaurants, not as an owner, as a worker, before opening Traveler's Table with I. A man who was once a CEO stood at someone else's line and learned from the bottom. That is not the behavior of an impulsive man. That is not the behavior of someone who cracks under pressure. That is a behavior of someone who is methodical, disciplined, someone who rebuilds deliberately and completely, someone who thinks before they move. So ask yourself, does that psychological profile match what we're being told happened on Sunday night? Does a man who spent 14 years building a pharmaceutical company, who then voluntarily stepped back down to learn a new craft from scratch, who built a globally recognized restaurant and a second location, and a clothing line, does that man suddenly and without warning cross a line that cannot be uncrossed? Maybe. People break in ways that defy their history. It happens. I am not dismissing it. But I am asking you to hold the contradiction, because it is a significant one. Now here is where I want to introduce something that no outlet has fully examined yet. A former employee, speaking to the U.S. Sun, described the dynamic between Thy and Matthew in a way that should make your ears perk up. They said, Thy was the warm one, the visible one, the one staff loved and gravitated toward. And they described Matthew as, and I am quoting directly here, a little awkward, someone who didn't like too much spotlight, someone who could become easily agitated. Now, the source was careful to say they never witnessed violent behavior. And I want to be careful too, because easily agitated is not a synonym for dangerous. Plenty of people are easily agitated. But here is what that detail does tell us. It tells us that the Matthew Mitchell the public saw, the co-owner, the award recipient, the man smiling beside his wife in press photos, was not necessarily the Matthew Mitchell that people experience up close. There was a gap between the image and the interior, between what he projected and what he actually felt in a room full of people paying attention to someone else. And that was magnetic, by every account. The kind of person who walks into a room and the room reorganizes itself around her. The board wanted her. The chefs wanted to collaborate with her. The press wanted to profile her. The association wanted her to lead. What does it feel like to be the person standing next to that and not be that? I am not saying that feeling drove anything. I am asking you to sit with the psychology of it, because it matters either way. If Matthew broke, that dynamic matters. And if Matthew didn't break, if someone else did this, that dynamic matters even more, because it gives someone a motive to want the Mitchells gone, to want the empire disrupted, to want the rising star extinguished in a way that pointed blame inward rather than outward. Here is the alternative theory. And I want you to stay with me, because this is not speculation for the sake of drama. This is a framework that the evidence has not yet ruled out. Matthew Mitchell was CEO of a pharmaceutical research company. That world, clinical research, drug development, trials, investment, is not a clean world. It is a world of money, of liability, of people who stand to gain or lose enormously depending on outcomes that one man at the top of a company controls. We do not know what Matthew Mitchell's tenure at the Texas Center for Drug Development looked like up close. We do not know what deals were made, what promises were broken, what enemies were created in 14 years at the top of that industry. We also do not know the full financial picture of Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart. Restaurants are brutal. The margins are razor thin even in good years. 2 locations, a clothing line, a River Oaks mortgage, a 3rd child on the way. That is an enormous amount of financial pressure sitting beneath a very polished surface. And here's what we know about money and desperation. They create enemies in places that look nothing like crime. Tips have circulated unverified, not confirmed in any published reporting, that gambling may have been a factor in Matthew Mitchell's private life, that debt may have been building beneath the surface. I cannot confirm that. I will not present it as fact, but I will tell you this. If there was debt, and if that debt was owed to the wrong people, then Sunday night starts to look very different. Not like a husband who broke, like a family that was targeted, like a scene that was carefully arranged to look like the most believable possible explanation. Because what is more believable than a stressed husband, a high-achieving wife, a pressure-filled household, and a tragedy that writes itself? The children were found in their beds. I keep coming back to that. I cannot stop coming back to that. Because if you are a father, even a father at the absolute end is rope, and you are going to do something unthinkable, the moment you stand in your child's doorway and look at them sleeping, something in the human nervous system resists what comes next. Every study on familicide, every case profile, Every psychological analysis of men who have crossed that line describes that moment as the hardest one, the one where most men stop, the one that, if they do not stop, requires a level of psychological detachment that does not appear suddenly. It builds. It is visible in retrospect, even when it wasn't visible in real time. And yet, nobody saw anything. Not one person. Not one moment. Not one comment that made anyone rewind. Does that feel like a man who was building towards something unsurvivable? Or does it feel like a man who had no idea Sunday night was coming either? Houston police stated there is no indication of outside involvement. I respect that statement. I also know that it was made early in an active investigation, before the full forensic picture was assembled. And I know that in true crime, in case after case after case, the early statement and the final truth are not always the same thing. No motive has been released. No note has been found. No prior calls to that home. No public disturbance. No financial records released. The investigation is ongoing, and this video is still up. Maya spinning in that dress. The comment section still growing. Still collecting hearts from people who haven't heard yet. Still holding the last ordinary moment of a family that the world is only now beginning to understand it never really knew. So here is what I want to leave you with. And I want you to really sit with these questions before you go to the comments. Because I think the answers you come up with say something important not just about this case, but about how we process tragedy when it comes wrapped in success and silence. If Matthew Mitchell was guilty, what do you think was the thing nobody saw? What was the pressure that built in private while the public life kept shining? And why did someone as visible, as connected, as celebrated as Mitchell have no one close enough to notice? And if Matthew Mitchell was not guilty, who in that world had enough to gain enough access and enough understanding of his family's private architecture to walk into that house on a Sunday night and leave it looking like a story that told itself? What kind of person plans something that clean? What kind of person knows a family well enough to make their worst nightmare look like their own doing? And here's the question that I think matters most of all. The one that keeps me up at night when I sit with this case. That babysitter. The one who made the call. The one whose gut feeling broke this story open. What did she know about that family that made one missed message feel like more than a missed message? Because she didn't panic after 1 hour. Or 2. Or 5. She waited until something inside her said, this is not normal. This silence is not right. What had she seen inside the house that gave her that radar? We don't know her name. Nobody is asking. And that, right there, might be the most important unanswered question in this entire case. Leave your theory in the comments right now. Tell me what detail you cannot let go of. Tell me what you think happened in that house on Sunday night, when Houston went quiet and nobody noticed. Tell me if you think the official story holds, or if something about it feels just a little too neat, a little too clean, a little too convenient for someone who is not in that house anymore and cannot be questioned. Mitchell deserved her Boston trip. She deserved to watch her sister get married. She deserved to meet her 3rd child. Maya deserved to grow up and keep giving 10s out of 10. Max deserved to wake up on Monday morning. Subscribe to Mistora Crimes right now. Hit that bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because part 3 is coming. And as this investigation develops, as more details surface, as the forensic picture becomes clearer, we are going to be right here, paying attention, asking the questions that nobody else is asking. For Maya, for Max. We don't look away here. See you on the next one.